Today, on another edition of Ludicrously Huge Revolvers, we have the Motherlode. Thanks for tuning in to another video on ForgottenWeapons.com. I'm Ian McCollum, and I'm here today at the Rock Island Auction Company, and as previously alluded, we in fact have the Motherlode, as well as a standard Model 100. These are both guns that are manufactured, or were manufactured, by Century Manufacturing, Inc. This was a project, and this is, I should say, a Colt Single Action Army mechanism scaled up, way up, to 45-70 and 50-70 caliber, which makes them pretty ludicrously huge. This was a project of two guys named Earl Keller and Gene Phelps, both in Indiana. And the name, and I think maybe the concept, came from the fact that the 45-70 cartridge was adopted in 1873. They were producing these, they started making these in 45-70 in 1973, hence the 100-year centenary of the adoption of the 45-70 cartridge. Hence they named the first gun the Model 100. Now they would offer these in a variety of cartridges. The most popular was 45-70. As far as I can tell, the second most popular appears to have been 50-70, which they named the Model 500 because the 50-70 was like 1868, and naming it the Model 95 or the Model 68 sounds kind of dumb, but 500 from 50-70, that sounds cool. So Model 500 over here. They also offered them in 375 Winchester, in 444 Marlin, and in 30-30 Winchester. Interestingly, I suppose once you've got the mechanism, it's not that big a deal to offer them in some different chamberings. So before we talk about production, let's take a closer look at what these ludicrously huge revolvers really are. Here is our Model 100 6-shot 45-70 caliber single action revolver, and for comparison's sake, how about a 1911? Substantially larger than a 1911, and this guy weighs something on the order of 6 pounds. It is a very heavy gun. There's the designation, Model 100. On the other side of the frame, we have Century Manufacturing Incorporated, and for the record, this has nothing to do with the Century Arms that does all sorts of importation and AKs and all that other stuff. This Century was named after the idea of the centenary of the 1873 rifle and the 45-70 cartridge. Speaking of which, we have a caliber designation up on the barrel in a nice, big, nicely engraved sort of style, 45-70. You've got adjustable sights on it, should you have the endurance to fire enough rounds to populate a target. I can only imagine that the recoil from this is significant, or as a gun writer would probably say, brisk but tolerable. It is a basic single action mechanism, just like the original Colt Single Action Armies. And we can cycle through there. That's how you would load the thing. Close the loading gate, fully cock the hammer, and it actually has a pretty nice trigger pull. Just a tiny bit of creep before it drops there. They also decided to put a crossbolt safety in it, so if you bring this back to the safety notch, you can then engage the safety. That's going to stop the trigger from moving and also prevents you from cocking the hammer. Now, something that you are probably wondering about is a brass frame. Like, holy cow, on a 45-70? Well, the answer is it's not actually brass. This is bronze, and bronze is actually substantially stronger than brass. It is also harder to work with, which is why brass was used when the material strength wasn't really necessary, namely for black powder revolvers. Why exactly they went with bronze instead of steel, I'm not entirely sure. It might just be for the looks. Justifiable, I suppose, if that's what you're going for. But you don't actually have to really worry about the bronze being a problem here, because it is strong enough to contain the pressures. And of course, the primary pressure is in the cylinder, which is good solid steel. Now, if that Model 100 wasn't enough for you, they also have the Model 500, or as the barrel says, the Motherlode in 50-70. 50-70 was, of course, the cartridge that predated 45-70, and it is 5 bigger, 5 100ths of an inch specifically. The 50-70 caliber has a solid cylinder. The 45-70, they've got enough space to actually add some flutes to it. And then you had some options when buying these things, because of course they were all made to order, largely barrel length. So We have a little bit shorter barrel here on our 45-70 than on our 50-70. It's interesting to note that I've read multiple accounts of people who ordered these when they were new on the market in the early 70s, and many of them report it taking literally years, like 5 to 10 years before they actually got the guns in. Now they were pre-ordered but not prepaid, so that's a good thing. But yeah, a couple accounts of people like 7 years after they ordered the gun getting notified that, hey, your gun's ready whenever you're ready to pay for it. You know, whoa, wow, I totally forgot about that sort of thing. You know, it's kind of funny if a lot of people would expect, like, oh, it's a 45-70 revolver, that's huge, you know, imagine what the muzzle looks like. Well, the muzzle looks like a 45 Colt revolver because it's the exact same diameter. The cylinder has to be a lot thicker to maintain, you know, to contain the pressure of modern smokeless 45-70. But unless you actually see someone's hand on the gun to put the whole thing really in context, it doesn't immediately come out that these are so ludicrously large. And if you really want to go over the top, they even offered them as engraved guns, should you so desire. So I assume mother of pearl grips. This would normally look like one of those kind of cheesy gold-plated engraved guns, except in this case it is not plated at all. It is a bronze receiver that has been engraved, along with the cylinder and the barrel. And naturally, if you're going to go to the extra expense of getting one engraved, the big one's the one to do, the 50-70, the mother load. In 1976, the two partners in the company parted ways. They broke up. They had some sort of business disagreement, I would presume. But they both continued to make the guns. So Keller continued to manufacture guns like this, bronze frame, the same model numbers, etc. And he would continue to do so for quite a while. Phelps had some different ideas, and he actually went to manufacturing them out of stainless steel, and he changed the model names. Presumably, I suppose they probably had the model names trademarked. So his model names are things like Eagle 1, Grizzly 1, Heritage 1, depending on the caliber that they were being offered in. So grand total between the two, best I can tell, is something like 3,000 of these revolvers manufactured in total, dating up until relatively recently. So pretty cool to have a couple examples of these to take a look at. They are, again, one of a relatively small handful of ludicrously large revolvers that have been out there, that have been made at various times for various reasons. So if you're interested in any of these two guys, or of course the big engraved one, they are all being offered at the Rock Island Auction Company. If you'd like to know more about Rock Island, you can take a look in the description text below. I have links there to their Instagram page and their YouTube channel, both of which have a bunch of cool stuff on them. So check those out, and thanks for watching.